Okay, ready to rock?
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of City Council to order.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first ever electronic council meeting at the City of Barrie, and certainly under unusual circumstances. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have physical distancing measures and the order in council restricting gatherings to 5 people or less. So City Council is also practicing physical distancing, and all of the councillors and our executive management team are participating via this video conference tonight. Members of EMT and Fire Chief Corey Mainprize are not visible, but they are online and available to answer questions if needed. I just want to start today. First of all, welcome to all those watching at home. I want to start by reminding everybody of the protocol that's been sent by the city clerk with regards to the electronic meetings and our ground rules for a meeting like this. So first of all, if you're participating via online video conference, please do mute your microphone unless you are speaking. If you're participating by online video conference though, please leave your webcams on. If you're on the phone, the call should be muted unless you're speaking. We may need to mute participants to address sound issues. If we do have to do this, we will call on you before you're unmuted. Any member of City Council or staff participating via online video conference should indicate that they wish to speak by using the raise hand feature on Zoom meeting here, or you can actually raise your hand if that doesn't work, and we will see you on camera. That will allow me to identify you and add you to the speakers list. Any member of City Council participating by telephone should be called on by the chair to speak after members participating in person or via online video conference. But I think we have everybody on video, so we're good for that. Any member of City Council participating via video conference or telephone should announce if they're leaving the meeting prior to our adjournment, or if you're leaving the meeting for a break, please do let us know. Only a member of council or staff shall be present or listen in on the closed session portions of the meeting, of course. In the event of a service interruption, just in case we do have an issue with connectivity or the meeting dropping, or any of you becoming disconnected, we may recess for up to 15 minutes to try and solve that issue. After 15 minutes of not connecting, we will attempt to resume the meeting without the member that's been disconnected if we still have a quorum. All members of City Council participating by online video conference will vote by a show of hands. All members of City Council participating by telephone will be asked by the chair to vote verbally. Recorded votes will only be made if requested, just as in our normal procedure. If a recorded vote is requested, there will be a roll call and a verbal vote administered by the city clerk. So that is how we are going to try to operate here in our first virtual meeting. Our first item of business, though, tonight is to alter the order of business so that we can actually deal with the direct motion and the bylaw to allow us to proceed under this format. So that is the direct motion and bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw concerning electronic meeting participation prior to all the other business on the agenda. So we will do that bylaw first. I will ask you if you are in favor of changing the order of business so we can do that bylaw first. Please indicate by raising your hand if you are in favor. Are any opposed? None. That carries. Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Ward, I believe you have the motion.
I do. First of all, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Amendment to procedural bylaw 2009-100 electronic meeting participation during an emergency. That pursuant to the Municipal Emergency Act 2020 procedural bylaw 2019-100 be amended to provide that members of council or local board can participate electronically and count towards quorum at any council or committee meeting, open or closed to the public during any period where an emergency has been declared to exist, all or in part of the municipality under Section 4 or 7.0.1 of the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward and seconded by Councillor Thompson that pursuant to the Municipal Emergency Act 2020, procedural bylaw 2019-100 be amended to provide that members of council or a local board can participate electronically and count towards quorum at any council or committee meeting, open or closed to the public during any period where an emergency has been declared, to exist in all or part of the municipality under Section 4 or 7.0.1 of the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Are there any comments or questions on this motion? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. Those in favor, please indicate by show of hands. Or any opposed, excuse me. None. That carries unanimously. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Ward, I think you have another motion.
That's the bylaw, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 32. Feels weird having nobody pass it.
It's all right, we've got them here. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 32. This is the procedural bylaw. Any comments or questions on the accompanying bylaw? Okay, seeing none, please indicate whether you're in favor by show of hands. Those in favor? Any opposed? None. That carries. Very much. Okay, the other change to the normal order of business that I need the council to consider and hopefully approve is to allow the CAO to speak next. So normally we would do bylaws after the direct motions. There are a couple of direct motions on the agenda, but I'd like to do the presentation first. We would like to do that first. So all those in favor of allowing the presentation from the CAO to go first for the direct motions, please indicate by show of hands. Any opposed? None. That carries. Okay, we have one presentation to be received this evening by council, and that is by the city's Chief Administrative Officer, Michael Krause, concerning an update on the COVID-19 pandemic. Just by way of brief introduction to the presentation before I hand it over to CAO Krause. I think it has often been said and over the last several weeks in the media by many that COVID-19 is not a short-term event. I've heard it described as a winter, not a blizzard. And so it is an unusual type of emergency, one that will be with us for some weeks and potentially months. That being said, our CAO, under both the delegated authority that exists under normal circumstances, and then of course, once we declared a municipal emergency, swung into action very, very quickly when things started to change very rapidly on March the 13th and March the 14th. So we will hear a little bit about that, about the changes that have been made to the organization and to the public, public-facing services, and as well the essential services. But know that under these unusual circumstances, we rely on the incredible experience and expertise of our senior management team, who each deliver their respective departments and manage it under these unusual circumstances through the emergency control group. And the emergency control group continues to meet and take decisions affecting the city services on a daily basis, which is obviously different than in normal circumstances. So with that, a little bit of introduction into how things have been operating over the last couple of weeks, I will hand it over to CAO Krause.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and thank you, members of council. By way of context, I think it probably is helpful if I talk a little bit about the emergency control group. For members of council, it includes your executive management team, but it goes broader than that. It includes representation from Barrie Fire and their management. It includes representation from Barrie Police and their senior officers. In this case, it also includes representation from the health unit, and soon will probably include representation from RVH as we work out how we can share information more effectively between us. So those members, although they wear slightly different hats and as they sit around the table have different titles, I sit as the incident commander, as the CAO of the city of Barrie, and that team meets regularly. Sometimes we meet several times a day. Weekends, as is required, and we have a standard meeting currently every morning, and additional meetings as is required. The goal is to respond to the current emergency and make decisions in the best interest of the city to address whatever the threat or hazard is, and through that to make recommendations through the emergency control group up to and including the mayor, which most recently ended in the recommendation for an emergency, which was declared on March 23rd, 2020, after the emergency control group actually had been activated on March 13th, 2020. With that, Ryan, can you just bring up the, you got me exactly where I want to be. Thank you very much. So the emergency control group, as you'll see here, I thought for members of council, you've received literally thousands of words written by me and for me, mostly for me, to make sure that you are updated on the decisions that we have made and the ever-changing landscape and what has been, believe it or not, really only about 3 weeks. In that has been literally hundreds of decisions by the team as we have moved very quickly to try to address the opportunity for transmission throughout our community of the COVID-19, I'll call it a virus because I'm not a doctor and probably can't explain it better than that. You've received almost daily updates from me and by extension your emergency control group. So I thought today would probably be beneficial to provide a little bit of different information and not try to recap all of the information that you've received over the last 20 plus days. So on this slide, you'll see the overview of our current status. This information is from the health unit as of, I believe, their noon release today. I think the slide actually currently shows 44 confirmed cases. That was updated to 50 as part of the conference call at about noon today, which includes 6 recovered, 8 hospitalized, and 4 deaths in the Simcoe County District Health Unit area. The critical piece, I think, for the health unit and certainly for the city of Barrie as a point of reaction was when they had evidence of community transmission. Now, the difference between that is, again, not being a doctor, I'll give you the layman's version. The COVID-19 virus moved from being a traveler infection to being in the community and being transmitted from community member to community member. When there was evidence of that, the approach both, I think, for the health unit and that for the city of Barrie changed dramatically. The last bullet point that I've shared with members of council to me is a pretty telling statistic that I have borrowed shamelessly from the health unit. But I think if I could get one message out to our residents, this would be the message. That is, with physical distancing, mathematical modeling shows that we can reduce the cases by up to 95%. Next slide, please. A little bit of information about where we are getting our I'll call it medical advice. We are relying on our public health teams to provide us the best information. They are certainly closest to it. They're live on the ground, and we meet with them at least daily. And decisions that we made are always and have always been grounded in the best scientific information available in concert with our partners at the health unit. Ryan, next slide. A brief update for you on the first responders from the city perspective. The police have provided this slide. The day we declared the state of emergency, the police activated their police operations center, which is currently active at their headquarters and is designed to assist them in dealing with ever-changing emergencies and threats to the city. I can report that the staffing level from Barrie Police continues to be strong. Despite some of the health concerns in the community, the Barrie Police are in good condition as it relates to staffing levels. And they've been a great partner as part of the emergency control group. Next slide. Barrie and Fire and Emergency Services, obviously a significant contributor and partner as part of the emergency control group. Barrie Fire has executed their pandemic plan. They're now in stage 1, which is considered to be low risk, and that was initiated on March 9th, 2020, with 3 Barrie Fire chief officers participating in the emergency control group and meeting each day as part of our emergency operations center. All essential services are being maintained with no immediate concerns based on current staffing levels, which continue to trend slightly above average. Our emergency incidents for Barrie Fire are approximately 15% lower in the city and across the county. PPE and decontamination policy and procedures have been updated, and all staff were trained as of March 16th, 2020. And we have implementation of mandatory medical screening for all staff and visitors at any of the stations starting as of March 19th, 2020. Our contingency planning has been deployed but continues to be underway. Staff are cross-training, and that started on March 23rd to improve our backup and staffing levels in the communications branch. In addition, Barrie Fire has been a great partner in providing additional resources to RVH in their time of need. We very quickly delivered over 695 masks to RVH the week of March 16th to 20th. We are currently working with RVH with a fit testing machine, which assists them with their masks, both providing the machinery and staffing to support RVH in their goal to ensure that all of their staff have proper fitting on their PPE. Next slide, right? Certainly one of our customer-facing conduits would be Service Barrie. And what we've seen over the last 3 weeks is we have approximately a standard call volume, so we haven't seen a significant spike. Overall, our staffing levels continue to remain good. Our water and wastewater and spill response operations also are reporting strong staffing levels. As of the declaration of emergency, obviously we have moved as many staff as possible to remote or work from home where feasible. And certainly our business continuity plans are now being fully deployed. As it relates to service delivery impacts, members of council, as you're well aware, our recreation centers, our libraries and theaters closed and the March break camps were canceled. We eventually closed city facilities to all of the public, and we are in the process of moving transit to our hourly or Sunday service to ensure that we have proper staffing to maintain this necessary service. Parking enforcement has been redeployed to safety issues only. And as you have probably seen through the media releases, we have asked for some additional waste collection sorting changes from our residents to help to ensure that our contractor is able to continue that very important service of curbside garbage and recycling collection. You'll also be aware that our playground and fitness and amenities equipment has been closed to the public through an abundance of caution to deter social gatherings. And our provincial offenses courts, the matters there have been rescheduled. Next slide. On the development side, as part of the redeploying of our resources, we actually have, and part of our business continuity, I'm very pleased to report we've had some very positive feedback from the industry about our approach to keeping development approvals moving during this critical time. Some of these developments require significant or long lead times, and the ability to continue to connect through technology has provided the development community with an opportunity to continue to move their business models forward. Most planning and engineering approvals work is able to take place remotely thanks to our investment over the last few years in our Apply program for development services, building, and most recently our right-of-way permitting processes. Development services teams are beginning to use the Zoom, Skype, and other various media opportunities for meetings on technical and site plan matters, and looking to share the information, and we will report back on how that process is going. Field inspections for site alteration related to development projects is proceeding following all public health standards. Building department is conducting plans review remotely, and we are continuing to review opportunities for building inspections and how we can provide that service while maintaining the highest possible safety standard for our employees. Next slide, please. Members of council were involved in the discussion. Ryan, could I get next slide? Thank you. No worries. Members of council were part of the discussions and the decisions as it relates to the deployment of what we have done to help our taxpayers, recognizing very early on the financial burden that has been put on many of our businesses and our residents. And I can enumerate for you that we introduced no new late fees or NSF charges related to tax and wastewater up until June 30th, subject to review. We provided options to opt out or suspend pre-authorized payment plans. No water shutoffs will be carried out until June 30th, 2020. We implemented free Barrie transit. Our recreation memberships have been extended or canceled. Full refunds on programs, room, event cancellations without admin fees and delegated authority for exceptional circumstances. And the financial impact modeling on further options that council may wish to consider at a future date. I would point to, as a point of pride, the city of Barrie was one of the first municipalities in Ontario, based on my anecdotal evidence at least, that was deploying these financial measures, recognizing the desires and needs of our residents and mirroring council's desire to help soften some of the blow during what is a very difficult time, both for our residents and our businesses. Communication triangles. As a matter of course, the mayor is the chief spokesman during an emergency. We would ask members of council to only retweet or repost official messaging during an emergency. And our key messaging continues to be stay at home, physical distancing, wash your hands, self-isolation for 14 days if symptoms after travel outside Canada or contact of a confirmed case of COVID identified or notified by the health unit. And I would note for members of council that we have seen a vast increase in our social media platforms as people are desperately searching for additional information. And a shout out to Ms. Reed and her department. We have seen a 502% increase in our social media followers as people are looking to gather the information as it continues to change, no longer on a daily basis, but probably on an hourly basis. Brian, could you just give me the next slide for a second? This continues to be some of the areas that we have pushed out to the broader public to share that same message right across the board. And I would say, I think I'm safe to say that there is really no stone unturned as we look for future opportunities and further opportunities to provide all that information to our public to make sure that people were aware of just how critical this issue was. And we're hearing the messaging from the health experts about staying home and stay apart. Can I get the next slide, right? The last piece will feed into a council decision, which will come up just after this presentation and questions. But as part of our effort to address what is concerns of the community, we are recommending that council consider three free bag tags per resident based on request that we would mail out to them. And I will give you the rationale for this, although it may come up as part of your discussion later. We recognize that there are more people at home. We recognize that this could possibly increase the amount of garbage. It certainly would increase the amount of diversion. But the reality is we provide an essential service when it comes to waste collection. During these very difficult times, that service is fragile. And we have continued to make changes and adjustments to make sure that we're providing our core services to our residents, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we can maintain those services. And as part of that, ensuring that we don't have an influx of garbage at the curbside, which is going to put a strain on our system, is critical. So we're recommending to council that they consider 3 free garbage bag tags upon request, which will allow residents to address some of their immediate needs, while at the same time allowing us to control the level and volume that we expect to see at the curbside. Last week. And with that, members of council, I think I promised you that I would be fairly brief and fairly high level, and I thought I would open it up to questions, Mayor Lee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prowse. Members of council, just a reminder, if you do wish to speak, please use the put your hand up function on Zoom. It's at the bottom of the participants list. So if you just click raise hand, I will take a speakers list and we will take questions now of the CAO. Those who wish to—
You may not see it here, but Councillor Allen and Ward.
Okay, first we have Councillor Allen. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Just a few quick questions. I'm not sure when we went to hourly service on Barrie Transit, but I'm wondering if we've seen any concerns around increased number of passengers on individual buses as a result, and I'm wondering if we're tracking that situation.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to this is a different format. Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Howlett. Thank you for the question. We're in the process of moving to the hourly service. It actually won't be fully implemented, I think, till this weekend. But we're in the processes of doing the planning and the communication around it. The expected outcome actually, we believe, will reduce some of the ridership because I will leave it at that. We expect that we will actually see reduced congestion on the bus moving to the hourly service.
I can open it up to Rebecca.
Okay, thank you. And are we considering limiting the number of passengers at all, or is that not something we're concerned about because we're seeing such low numbers?
I want to talk about the measures in place today.
Yeah, I think actually Ryan's reminded me, Rebecca James Reed is also on the line and she can certainly speak to this more effectively than myself. Rebecca, I wonder if I could defer that to you.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman and members of council. I just wanted to let you know that we do have measures in place presently. We've taped off every other seat on the bus, and we do take a maximum of 15 people per bus. We've had to unfortunately turn away a couple times and then indicate to the passenger that the next bus is coming, but we are seeing a steady decline in the number of people taking the bus over the past 7 to 10 days. So it hasn't become a major problem.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I have one more question. And I'm going, when I go out on walks, in the community, I see that people are really following the guidelines from public health, staying home, distancing. But I can foresee a situation where the weather starts to get nice. People want to get out of the house and they go out to our parks, go out to our waterfront, and we see some crowds. Are there any steps we're taking, maybe having bylaw officers patrolling our parks and our waterfront, just to gently remind people that we should be distancing and limiting group size? Is that something we're considering?
Thanks for that question, Councillor Owen. That was something for discussion even today. CIO Press.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Elwin. I would say that the measures that we're taking, that's also a rapidly changing landscape. The province made some changes as it relates to enforcement, I think late Friday. So municipal law enforcement and Barrie Police and the health unit actually are meeting currently to try to determine what is the front line of that? How do we approach that? Obviously, education is our primary goal, but at some point, education no longer works, and you may need to take other measures. So our plan would be to be as proactive as possible, and certainly as the weather does warm up, we will change our approach in a number of areas, and I would expect to see some proactive enforcement and education on the water.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Owen. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. It would be especially devastating if some of the staff in essential services, police, fire, wastewater, water, if they were, if COVID-19 hit them in a serious way. So I guess I'm curious as to, I'm not sure who else online, but what measures are being taken to ensure, both in terms of social distancing, cleaning surfaces, sanitizing places, just to make sure that those people, it has the least effect on them.
Mr. President.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor Ward. I think I'll speak to Barrie Fire, but you can imagine Barrie Police have deployed similar measures. Both are using an active screening process. Those reporting for work every single day go through an active screening exercise, which I won't enumerate, but they're fairly confident that at least gives them some indication as to what's going on. Sanitation at all city facilities, whether open to the public or not, has been enhanced because even if the doors are closed to the public, we typically have a staff of some sort inside, and that includes our essential services such as water and wastewater. But certainly there's ongoing screening as it relates to that. Social distancing is in place, and we continue to, I would say, recalibrate our approach as new information comes out and new recommendations. So a policy one day probably changes within 48 hours based on new information coming out from the experts in public health.
Okay, thank you.
I had Councillor Natalie Harris and then McCann.
Councillor Natalie Harris, you're next on the list.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Yeah, my question, my dog is barking, sorry. Of course, right now. I have had some residents reach out to me and let me know that even before the really nice weather, there are some gatherings that are happening on driveways and garages, and it's a group of people that are even, varying numbers. So I've relayed the information and advice that you've given to us and to the community to, encourage neighbors to kindly remind them that this is not allowed. But what recommendations do you give to us as counselors directly if we come across this ourselves and we see this? I mean, I know I'm comfortable talking to the group as well, but I feel like it's kind of our responsibility, hopefully, to manage this in a way that we don't have to involve the rest of staff, because they're busy doing so many things in other ways. So I guess also I just wanted to say it publicly as well, that we're really aware of how important this is, that people follow the rules and the emergency is made, and that is for the best and the safety for everyone, because the ripple effect could be so enormous and devastating. So what would you recommend for us to do exactly?
So thanks for the question, and I'll start and maybe hand it over to CAO Kraus. And first of all, thank you. I haven't said yet in this meeting, but so many members of council have been in frequent communication with me about what they've seen and their concerns and how to respond in various circumstances. And of course, I've been trying to provide updates to council through my somewhat lengthy at times emails and so forth. To the community, and Councillor Harris, thank you for the question. I would say we are all speaking with one voice from all three levels of government, and that is the guidance of public health. And the city has taken an unprecedented level of effort in the last week through signs, every single radio station, all digital media, to push out the singular message to stay home and stay apart. And I would say to you that we continue to receive those same messages that you're talking about, frustration from people who are seeing neighbors or otherwise not respecting the distance in particular. That's the one that we get the most of. I just put my daily update out about an hour ago, and I was pretty blunt because we actually had some people remove the caution tape at our playgrounds and use those. And that is so completely unacceptable. You were putting people at risk by doing that. And so I've had to be pretty blunt about that. And I think we can be blunt. It is time for us to be blunt. Public health is telling us this is the most important week in many ways for social distancing. So I encourage you to get that message out. Physical distancing, I'm sorry, I know the terminology has been changing, but it's a simple message, isn't it? Stay home if you can, stay 6 feet apart wherever you are when you are not home. And those messages, which we have been pushing out as a corporation, continue to be the same. And I simply encourage you, as I know all of you are, to reinforce the message that we're being given. One of the great strengths about the way this country has responded to this crisis is that we're letting public health doctors and scientists lead the response. They are telling us what needs to happen and how. And I believe you've seen all three levels of government working very well together to reinforce the same message. And I just encourage all members of council to do the same thing. CAO Kraus, anything you want to add on this?
I think the only thing I would add, Mayor Lehman, that our most effective weapon is education and information. And I think the city's done just an incredible job, led by Mayor Lehman's efforts to get on social media to make sure that people understand the impacts of this. This has continued to change over the 3 weeks. It wasn't that long ago that the province was recommending gatherings of no more than 50 people. And then they've continued to drop the number to the point where I think the number now is 5 people. So it will take some adjustment, but voluntary compliance is going to capture probably 90% of that, and we're going to have to deal with that 10%. But Don McAlpine's team is meeting with Barrie Police and the health unit to try to determine the best way to open up a conduit to the public to address people who are in non-compliance, so that we can ensure that they have the information and they are adhering to the expectations. So I would look for more on that in the next couple of days, Councillor Harris.
And maybe I'll just add to complete the response that the province, of course, announced that municipal bylaw officers, municipal law enforcement will have the ability to enforce their emergency order. That's not something that happens overnight, but we're trying to look at how quickly that can happen in terms of, for example, businesses that are opening and should not. I know that Barrie Police have been active on this from early days in the emergency order, more than a week ago. But for now, I echo the CAO's comment. We are just pushing that message out as bluntly and as broadly as we possibly can. Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor McCann, you're next.
It's a space bar, right?
Can you unmute it?
Yeah, hold on.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Excuse me. So thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Lehman and Michael Prowse. I got a couple questions. One is with enforcement, which obviously I think a lot of the councillors have, and the second one is with communication. And the first one with enforcement is, I can't help but think that, the city staff have done an excellent job, but what we did last week isn't going to be good enough this week, and we really need to keep up and stay ahead of this. And I'm looking at BC, I'm looking at Brampton, I'm looking at Toronto. I've called some friends over in London, England, and what really seems to be working over in London especially is these on-the-spot fines. I understand that we're a forgiving city, forgiving country, but I would just like to think that, or like to get maybe an explanation on why we're not being maybe a little more aggressive with on-the-spot fines, and maybe we can be a little more forgiving and have incentives where it can be maybe some volunteer work if groups are not abiding by these rules. Because like Councillor Erwin, I'm downtown once or twice a day exercising, keeping my distance, and I see groups together every single time, and the message is just not getting out clear enough.
Chris?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor McCann, I believe Don McAlpine's on the line. Right, if we can bring in Don, I think Don has some information for you, Councillor McCann.
Sure, thank you, appreciate that.
Good evening. Through you to Councillor Mike McCann. The province only recently provided municipal law enforcement officers with the authority that was previously provided to police under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. As a result of that, there are fines that are available to be utilized. As with any enforcement activity, our first attempt would be, where feasible, to educate, seek voluntary compliance, and if that's not successful, then implement the fine mechanism that is only now available to municipal law enforcement officers. I would note that until this past weekend, when the province made the change, public gatherings of up to 50 people were still allowed. So even at that point for police, there was no ability just to address people who were gathering in large groups of less than 50 people. With the province's change to reducing the number of people in public gatherings to 5, that opens up different opportunities than existed previously. One thing that is of note is that the recommendation for physical distancing is currently of 2 meters or 6 feet, is currently a recommendation. It is not law at this point in time. So if people are gathering with 5 people or less, that is permitted. If it's greater than 5, we would seek to educate, seek voluntary compliance, and after that, individuals may be subject to a fine if they don't actually voluntarily comply.
A question for you, Don, please.
Yep, go ahead, Councillor McCann.
So does the mayor not have the power, or do we not have the power to make bylaws where we can change that law without the provincial backing us, or is that something that that Barrie's a little bit handcuffed on?
So
Like,
through you, Mayor Lehman to Councillor McCann. The city couldn't provide a bylaw that's more restrictive necessarily than the province. And in order to have a set fine, those actually have to be approved by the province. So there's a process associated with that. Our best method is to, again, educate, seek voluntary compliance, and then only apply fines when they're available because it's an actual offense, or when and a person doesn't comply.
Well, I know you don't work for the province, Don, but I'd love to get your opinion on this. Like, why did the province not make this mandatory? Like, why is this still ambiguous? Why is this not a law by now when we know that social distancing or physical distancing is how we're going to combat this virus?
Mayor Lehman, through you to Councillor McCann, I can't speak to why the province hasn't specifically included the physical distancing as an offense, those who are not physical distancing as an offense. At this point in time, I can advise that it is not one.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Don. Appreciate that.
Okay, was that it, Councillor McCann?
One more question about the communications, Mayor Lehman, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I'd like a little more. I'm getting conflicting maybe direction. The city of Barrie prefers to have all direction filtered through our communications director and through the mayor, correct? And through CAO.
So under our emergency plan, it is the emergency information officer, which is Ms. James Reed.
Correct. Okay, so everything has to go through her. So therefore, are we allowed to repackage some of this information, or is it an actual direct tweet? Sorry, my battery's dying here. A direct tweet, Facebook post, or does it have to be? Can we put our own flavor into our communication?
Fair question. Mr. Prowse, would you like to comment? And then we can get Ms. James Reed to comment as well.
I would defer to Ms. James Reed. I think she's got more information than I would have.
Ms. James Reed.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor McCann. It is, as the mayor indicated, it is prescribed in our emergency plan that the communications, and it is a best practice in any emergency situation, that you do have clear, consistent messaging. And
Right.
so any communication is asked to come through myself as the role of the emergency information officer. You can certainly, there's lots of tools to access information though on our website. I am sending out daily FAQs to you that you can then use those same messaging. We did, as you know, prepare a newsletter on your behalf that's going to all residents, and that went to Canada Post today. So certainly when you get those type of things, you can post that on your Facebook page and you can share the assets. If you are interested in having something like some of our banner ads that you see on our website, reach out to me and I can certainly get those to you, and then you can post them on your page. But we just really want to keep it simple and clear, and it's less confusing. When people take a message, something as simple as stay home, and then make it a little bit different, it will become all different messages. Everyone does that. So we're really trying to use all of our ways that we have to reach our residents on this important issue.
Sorry, Ms. James Reed, we lost your audio there at the end. Could you maybe just go back over your last 2 or 3 sentences, please?
Okay, sure. I'm not sure where you lost, where
That's
we lost.
better.
Okay, so I just said if it's really important, it's a consistent best practice to have consistent, clear messaging. And if you do want to use some of the tools we have, if you reach out to me, I'm happy to send them to you to use them on your Facebook page and that kind of thing. And if you do get questions from residents, we are preparing our frequently asked questions, and we will answer those daily and get them back to you.
Well, I appreciate that. I do feel quite handcuffed here, but I'd like to be able to express to my residents the way that I feel like I want to. I don't mind using the same information, but I'd like to open up the Zoom to the residents of Ward 10, and I'm feeling that I'm going to be restricted. So I just wanted to ask publicly: is this something that's going to restrict me, or is this something that I'm allowed to do using all the city resources and using the same city messaging?
Through you, Mayor Lehman.
Yeah.
So through your, under our emergency plan, we do have one spokesperson, and it is the mayor. And the information does funnel through our emergency control group, who meet every day. So if you'd like to consider doing something like a recorded video, we could look at doing something like that where we provide you the key messaging and we review them, and we could help share that through our corporate channels. But it is unfortunately the way that the emergency plan is written.
Okay, and I'm guessing town hall meetings fall under the same restriction, I'm guessing.
Yes, it would.
Okay, so I may lose you. I'm down to 1% battery on my iPad. I'm having some trouble with my battery. So if I hang up on it, it's not because I'm mad, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman McCann. Next, Nolan.
Councillor Jim Harris.
Councilor Jim Harris, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. This is just a quick follow-up for Ms. James Reed, and just really request, you had asked or offered to send the information to us if we requested. I'm wondering if maybe there is an interest just to say, yes, we'd love you to send that information.
Sorry, Councilor Harris, you're looking for the FAQs?
Sorry, in regard to the question from Councillor McCann and the offer from Ms. James Reed to send, I think it was banners and different information for us to utilize. I think, so she asked if you want to reach out. I'm thinking maybe that we are likely in agreement to please send that information to us and we can then use it without having to reach out. Maybe we're reaching out now, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. So Ms. James Reed, if those opportunities could be provided to members of council, and also some guidance on how to different ways to use their channels to distribute the corporate messaging, that would be very helpful.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Mr. Nolan?
I didn't see anybody else.
Okay, any other questions from members of council? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Mr. Prowse. And just at the conclusion of the presentation here, I did want to note something that our CAO mentioned, but somewhat briefly, which is that, you know, in all of these circumstances, there are plans, there are preparations, but no two circumstances or crises are ever the same. And COVID-19 is very unusual in many regards. The speed with which our executive management team moved to change and protect the public through the orderly shutdown of our services, and then the speed with which the team moved to amplify the messaging of public health and get that message out to our community. He said it briefly that we were ahead of other municipalities in Ontario. It's not about a race, but it's about the efforts that were made quickly and the ability of the organization to respond. I'm extremely proud of this organization and the way in which people within the city moved so quickly, working often very, very, very late hours as the situation developed. That being said, of course, it is an ongoing situation and it is far from over. It is in some ways only beginning. So there will be more tough decisions and situations to handle, but we can have a lot of pride, I think, in the way that the organization has worked to this point. And that is in no small part due to the leadership of the CAO and the emergency control group. So thank you, Mr. President. It brings us to direct motions on the agenda, members of council. There are two tonight. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Move. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Committee appointment, Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit Board, that bylaw 2018-146 be amended, being a bylaw to appoint members to various committees, boards, and commissions, being further amended to appoint Councillor Anne Marie Kungle to the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit Board to replace Councillor Mike McCann.
Okay, thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that bylaw 2018-146 is being further amended by bylaw to appoint members to various committees, boards, and commissions, be further amended to appoint Councillor A. Kungle to the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit Board to replace Councillor M. McCann. I believe there was a potential amendment on this one. Councillor Jim Harris, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Yes, I have an amendment, and it's as follows. That the direct motion on the City Council agenda dated March 30th, 2020 concerning the committee appointment, Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit Board, be amended by deleting the paragraph 1 and replacing it with the following. That bylaw 2018-146 is amended being being a bylaw to appoint members to various committees, boards, and commissions be further amended as follows. A, to appoint Councillor R. Thompson to the Finance Corporate Services Committee to fill the vacant position. B, to appoint Councillor A. Congal to replace the City Building Committee to replace Councillor R. Thompson. C, to increase the composition of the Seniors Advisory Committee by adding additional councillor representative, and that Councillor A. Congal be that appointed to the Seniors Advisory Committee. D, to appoint Councillor A. Congal to replace Councillor S. Morales on the Active Transportation Sustainability Advisory Committee. E, to appoint Councillor A. Congal to the County of Simcoe Human Services Committee to fill the vacant position and to replace Deputy Mayor B. Ward on the County of Simcoe Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. F, to appoint Councillor A. Congal to the Simcoe Municipal District Health Unit Board to replace Councillor M. McCann. G, to appoint Councillor M. McCann to represent Barrie City Council on the naming committee for the new South Barrie Secondary School. And finally, H, to appoint Councillor J. Harris to the Downtown Barrie Business Association, BIA. And I can speak to that if you like.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harris. Do you remember fondly a few weeks ago when we were worried about naming the South Secondary School? Seems like a lifetime. So there's a fairly extensive amendment here, members of council. You probably recognize the text of it. Councillor Harris is introducing an amendment for all those watching at home. The amendment is actually the full motion of appointments, which was part of the general committee report that was given tentative approval back on March 9th. While we had only been proceeding originally with the first appointment because it was the Public Health Board and the nature of the current situation, this is actually what General Committee approved on March 9th. So Councillor Jim Harris, thank you for introducing that. I will read it again because we need to do that, especially under this format. The amendment reads as follows: that bylaw 2018-146 as amended, being a bylaw to appoint members to various committees, boards, and commissions, be further amended as follows: to appoint Councillor R. Thompson to the Finance and Corporate Services Committee, to appoint Councillor A. Kungal to the City Building Committee to replace Councillor R. Thompson, to increase the composition of the Seniors Advisory Committee by adding an additional councillor, and that Councillor A. Kungal be appointed to that committee, to appoint Councillor A. Kungal to replace Councillor S. Morales on the Active Transportation Sustainability Advisory Committee, to appoint Councillor A. Kungal to the County of Simcoe Human Services Committee to fill the vacant position, and to replace Deputy Mayor B. Ward on the County of Simcoe Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. F, to appoint Councillor A. Kungal to the Simcoe Municipal District Health Unit Board. G, to appoint Councillor M. McCann to represent Barrie City Council on the naming committee for the South Barrie Secondary School. And H, to appoint Councillor J. Harris to the Downtown Barrie Business Association. Thank you for your amendment, Councillor Harris. Jim Harris, would you care to speak to this? Oh, are we able to get him back? Councillor Jim Harris, are you able to hear us? Oh, there you are.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Right. I tried to toggle back and forth between items on my iPad and it didn't work out so well. So I apologize for everybody watching. Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lehman. I certainly supported the motion when I saw it, and it made me think about the number of committees. And certainly, as we sit here in COVID-19, health unit obviously important, but also noticing the other committees. I saw seniors and recognizing that seniors are a primary concern of this COVID-19. I also saw social services as well, who we see are marginalized and vulnerable populations being important to a community that requires support. So, and also just in general business of kind of keeping things moving forward that we can, and being prepared as we move forward for COVID-19 and life as it moves forward afterwards. So I just felt that it was important. And some committees had vacancies, some are replacements. And so this allows us to fill vacancies. and be ready to return to those businesses as efficiently as possible moving through this current time. So those are my rationale. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. Thanks for the amendment. Are there those who wish to speak to the amendment? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. And again, please indicate by raising your hand. Those in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? None. That carries. Thank you. On the main motion as amended. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. Please indicate if you are in favor. Those in favor? Any opposed? None. That carries. Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Ward, you have another direct motion.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Garbage bag tags, that upon request by phone or email, a maximum of 3 free garbage bag tags be provided per dwelling unit through the mail up until June 30th, 2020, and that the cost of this initiative be funded through the Council's Strategic Priorities account, with the account to be reimbursed should a higher level of government provide funding assistance for COVID-19 pandemic response expenses. And I wouldn't mind speaking briefly to it.
Okay, thank you. We have direct motion moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that upon request by phone or email, a maximum of 3 free garbage tags be provided per dwelling unit through the mail up until June 30th, 2020, and that the cost of this initiative be funded through the Council's Strategic Priorities account, with the account to be reimbursed should a higher level of government provide funding assistance for COVID-19 pandemic response expenses. Deputy Mayor Ward.
I'll put the motion on the floor. I do not think it's necessary. I think for the vast majority of Barrie residents, they can get by with, they may have increased recycling and increased compost. I don't think they're going to have increased garbage. There may be exceptions, but I think everybody should take this opportunity to actually maybe learn a bit about recycling and composting and figure out how they can reduce the amount of garbage. There should be no excuse for this, for people having more garbage. Thousands of Barrie residents work out of their homes all the time and somehow figure out how to do it. I think we give them 45 pounds, or was it 45 pounds every 2 weeks? I think that's more than sufficient for how much garbage any household in Barrie should be producing. And I just want to correct something, just in case somebody heard Councillor CAO Prowse earlier mentioned 3 tags per resident. It's actually 3 tags per household. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. Are there those who wish to comment on this? I will ask you to use the raise hand function on your Zoom meeting. Mr. Nolan, do we have anyone indicating?
Councillor Morales.
Councillor Morales, go ahead. Oh, sorry, you're still muted, Councillor Morales. Just give us a second. There you go. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I just want to say that I'm supportive of the motion. I wish we lived in a world where it was unnecessary to do this. The reality, we're not. And if there's anybody who's in Ward 1 today, this morning, you would have seen there was garbage, there was recycling. The volume is insane. And tomorrow I believe it's going to be Ward 2 and so on. So for the people who haven't kind of seen it, the volume is up. And I think that I want us to be in an opportunity where people embrace and are forced to use recycling and diversion in the green bin, especially the green bin is what hits garbage. The reality is they don't. And I kind of struggled with this one, but the people who have done it for years, if they're working from home, if they've got kind of different scheduling, those are skills that have been developed over time. This is a crisis. There's so many more things that people are focusing on: food, job stability. And if this is one way we can help residents do it in the short term, then unfortunately we have to. And I'm cognizant of the fact that we want to preserve our landfill. I'm cognizant that diversion is strategy number 1, but I struggled. This is the question that really got me to support this motion. Could I talk to a resident, as a single guy in his 20s, and tell a family with 3 children how to do their garbage? No, that comes off very tone deaf. So I'm glad that it's a temporary measure, and I don't want residents really thinking that this is kind of the new reality, but I want us to not kind of put our heads in the sand and think that just because we might be a little bit more experienced with diversion, that the average family who is throwing out that garbage, they're throwing it at work, they're throwing it out at the rec center, they're having lunch downtown at the mall. Now all that consumption is happening at home. So I think these tags, hopefully they'll be enough, but we hopefully good skills can be developed moving forward from this. But I think just assuming people we'll figure it out is not the mindset to have.
Thanks, Councilor Morales.
Councilor Riepma.
Councilor Riepma.
All
There we
right.
go.
I'm going to support this this motion. I think that what's happening here is that people are a large number of people are working at home, and the children are all at home, and so that the garbage that is being produced would normally have been disposed of at work or at school or some other place. But now it's at home, and I think that the 3 tags kind of hits a nice balance. It helps people out, I think, in the short term. I'm certainly agree with Councillor Ward that we really do need to encourage people to recycle, but I think that in the short term, there will be more general waste, and so I'm supportive of the 3 tags. I think it's a nice compromise for the moment anyway.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Riepma. Any others who had indicated?
Councilor Congo.
Councilor Congo.
I think she's muted on her side.
Can you unmute on your side, Councilor Congo?
Yes,
There we
sorry, got a pop-up that kept blocking my microphone. Apologies. I hope it's not inappropriate for process. I'm in support, noting that it's a temporary period of time and on request, but I'm hoping that should there be a worst case scenario where we're continuing in the COVID situation past June 30th, that metrics could be quickly brought back to show us how this was adopted or used by residents and can inform any type of conversation or future consideration as to if this would be something we would consider to extend as an offering.
CEO Press, comment on that?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. It would be our intention to track the level of usage and provide that data back to council at a later date.
Thanks for that.
Councilor Jim Harris.
Councilor Jim Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And it just recognizing, and people still at this time can purchase extra tags. So I recognize that option always exists. And I think given if they have extra garbage, this is a reasonable cost to be able to support getting rid of that. And I know we also have the landfill closed to residential use, so you can't go yourself. And this is a time of people are home a lot. So I hear a lot of stories about decluttering and spring cleaning happening early. People are trying to stay busy in their homes or living their lives in their home primarily, which is what we're asking them to do. So they will be creating more residential garbage, and we need to find a way to help. And I think this is a really good compromise in the interim. So I'll support this motion.
Thanks, Councilor Harris.
Councilor Morales.
Councilor Morales.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lehman, quick question about logistics. Are we going to make sure that when we're giving the tags out, that we don't give them out to properties that have condo boards? And what I mean by that is condo boards, most of them still, eventually they'll be, hopefully we'll do partnerships with the city. They already have their private haulers. So I don't want somebody living in a condo to apply for these and, everything's going on right now. So staff don't, think you applied for it, you get it. And all of a sudden somebody at a waterfront condo downtown or at a suburban condo gets tags when it doesn't really affect them because they have their bin and their key, and now they're flipping them, selling them, essentially not using them for the intended. So is there kind of a way that we can make sure that addresses, because we also have databases that shouldn't be getting tags, aren't eligible for tags?
Thank you for the question, Councilor Morales, through Mayor Lehman to yourself. It would be staff's intention to apply a level of discretion as we get these requests in. That is part of the reason that we wanted to develop a process where we would respond to requests as opposed to simply mailing them out or allowing them free for pickup or something like that. So the goal is to try to manage the nuances similar to what you've just talked about.
Okay, so let me narrow the scope. Can we limit it to can we limit it so don't give them out to people who reside in condo boards that have private garbage collection, because they're not affected by this.
Well, sorry, through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Morales. The intention is obviously to assist residents who don't have private haulage. So if there's a building that is using private haulage and is not using the City of Barrie services, it is unlikely that we're going to mail garbage tags to them. I will happily circle back with you on that to ensure that that is the expectation, but that was certainly the expectation when this was planned.
Okay. Yeah, no, I want to be in a situation where that unlikely becomes a no, because again, I want to help people out, but at the same time, you know, this is a cost to all taxpayers at the end of the day. So it needs to go to who it was intended to. So yeah, definitely let me know.
Any others who've indicated? Okay. Okay, Councillor Gary Harvey, you're next. And then Councillor McCann, got you after.
There we go. It's touchy. Thank you, Your Worship. I will support this. I have had a few calls in relation to this particular issue. Personally, I don't think it's going to have much of an impact from a garbage dump perspective, as I know, like myself, with a family of 4, we seem to always manage, and most times every 2 weeks I'm only putting out 1 can. And realistically, I think with everybody being home, people need to just treat it as if we're all on summer vacation, other than the fact that we're almost under this forced house arrest, but due to this current situation. But I don't anticipate that we're going to see a huge impact to this, and I would hope that residents don't take advantage of this when they don't need to also. So I definitely will be in support of this, and understand the concerns that were raised by Councillor Morales in regards to his concerns also.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I actually agree with every councillor around the table here. I do agree with Barry, but I do believe that giving some relief to residents is a smart choice. But I would like to have some messaging maybe attached to these tags that come June, if the virus has not been contained and we're still under quarantine and we're still under social distancing, that the tags would not be approved for the second time. Just so there's the expectation is for residents to do what Councillor Ward is saying, as in to recycle, to minimize their garbage, because our landfill only has a shelf life, I believe, of 10 years. Am I right with that, Councillor Mayor Lehman?
Mr. Press, what are we up to on the landfill? I think a little bit more than that at the moment with the reclamation project, maybe 15 years.
I am going from memory, but I thought we had exceeded 12 years and it was somewhere between 15 and 18, Mayor Lehman, but I don't know.
Regardless, it is limited, 100%.
So I just would like the expectation, obviously council will approve this in 3 months, but I just would like to see if there could be some messaging that this is not going to go on forever. This is a one-time. So I'm not sure if we need to vote on that. I'm guessing or is that something that you can do, the Mayor Lehman?
I would suggest we could probably do it in the whatever accompanies the tags when we mail them out. But Mr. Press.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor McCann, there is a communications piece that is intended to go out once council has dealt with this issue as it relates to the garbage tags, and will ensure that the best before date is included as part of that communications piece.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal, guys. I think this is a small deal now because of what we're going through, but you know, if that just drops our landfill down from 2033 to 2028, because this goes on, I think that we have to let our residents know the expectation is to reduce recycle. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Any others who wish to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll certainly support it too. You know, whatever initial reluctance I had, I think it's worth noting as well that we asked our residents to make some changes to sorting to protect our collection workers as well. So there is increased garbage. There naturally is, by virtue of people being at home. So, you know, overall, it should be noted, you know, whatever garbage was being taken to the landfill from businesses that are now closed is, you know, a lot of that's now being generated at home. So, you know, there is an offset here that is occurring. But I think this is a small thing we can do. It's a relatively modest number of tags. I'm sure there will be some out there who say, you should have given us a lot more than 3. But we do obviously have that concern around encouraging recycling and not just opening the floodgates. So I'll support this as well. And with that, I will call the question on the motion that's on the floor. So please indicate by raising your hand if you are in favor of the motion. Any opposed? 1, noted. And that is carried. Okay, that completes the direct motions, members of council. The presentation item was moved up, which brings us to inquiries of staff. Deputy Mayor Ward, do you have any inquiries of staff?
I have one, and perhaps it's for the city clerk, although anybody can answer it. And just this is our first attempt. I think it's gone very well. I'm just curious as to what the plan going forward is for council and committee meetings.
And through you, Mayor Lehman, to Deputy Mayor Ward. During the course of the emergency, this will be our meeting format going forward. We are planning a couple more meetings throughout April. I'll be in touch with you all to schedule them. And Ryan will be tag teaming with me as my IT support, unless they start limiting people in rooms again. But this is the plan going forward. And we aren't having any advisory committee meetings for now. We're going to leave those until at least the end of May, depending on the situation. And we may bring the reference committee on board sooner than later, but right now it's just going to be council and general committee.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. Any others with inquiries of staff? No?
Oh, Councillor Thompson.
Sure, Councillor Thompson, did you have an inquiry?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Through you to Ms. Cook, going forward with this being the format, I know there's a lot of concern of public engagement. Could we maybe look into moving a bylaw that all deputations have to be in writing by a certain date to give, that way we can continue regular business and not pick and choose on what we do because of the impact to the public not being able to engage in something, where we make a format where it has to be in writing by Friday so people can still be heard?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Thompson. We are looking at different venues on public participation. I'm in constant communications with clerks across the province because we're kind of all in this new together. So we're kind of learning some best practices from other municipalities. The intent is the next meeting that we're having will be similar with no requirement for public participation. So no public meetings or anything like that. It will just be another update on the COVID situation. Going into the end of April, we are going to early May, we are going to start introducing some regular business back on the agendas, and we're just figuring out the best way to do it. And your option of providing concerns or support in writing is something that we're definitely looking at, and that's something that we accept currently as well. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any other inquiries of staff members of council? Okay, seeing none. Announcements. Does anybody have any announcements?
Councillor Aylwin.
Councillor Aylwin.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Just quickly, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize all of the essential workers who are still out there doing their job. Healthcare workers, grocery store clerks, emergency services, police, fire, EMS, all the frontline social service workers, city staff who are still out there doing their jobs. Thank you so much for what you're doing. You're keeping us going, and we're forever indebted to you. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Irwin. I think that was second on my list too, and I know you speak for all of council when you issue those thanks. Are there other announcements, members of council? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Sorry, Mr. Nolan. I was trying to raise my hand digitally. Just a quick message from the downtown BIA. It's been tough, and it's been tough for everybody. I don't want to emphasize that it's been especially tough for some people and not other people. Everybody's worried about bills, about sustainability. But the matter of the fact is, some small businesses, the non-franchised ones, the ones that maybe haven't been around for a while and have some cash on hand, they're imploding. And it's just the elephant in the room, they're imploding. However, we've been working very diligently the last 2 weeks to create an e-commerce portal for residents to buy gift certificates to their favorite downtown business, to their restaurant, to their retail, to their service. The businesses that have been loyal to you, it's now time for you to be loyal to them, and they need cash, and they need cash now. So when we eventually emerge out of this, and we will emerge out of this, you can use your gift certificates to go shop. And I believe the portal is being launched tomorrow. Will be active tomorrow. So anybody who's listening to the meeting, keep an eye out on the Downtown BIA Facebook and actual official website. I know that they're working diligently on the logistics of it, and I'll give kudos to Gel Creative for working with the BIA on that, as well as to Barry 360, Rock 95 and Cool FM. They've been working collaboratively with our BIA staff as well about promoting this. Any other media who wants to help out, that's great. And like I said, it's all about cash flow for businesses right now. So, keep your physical distancing, feel good about supporting your business who needs this to literally survive. And then know that once we move on from this, you'll be able to go use your gift certificate and continue being loyal to the business that you support. So Downtown BIA website, Facebook page tomorrow, and get shopping if you're able to.
Thanks very much, Councillor Morales. Any others who have announcements? Councillor Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Just came to mind, if there are any companies out there that have PPE or personal protective equipment that is sourced from Canada, Royal Victoria Hospital and Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit are always looking for information about those companies. And you can go to the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit website to link up to the hospitals, the 4 hospitals in Simcoe Muskoka, and provide those resources and information just so we can have as much PPE as possible.
Thanks, Councillor Harrison. That's actually something I wanted to mention as well. The health unit is receiving donations and coordinating the dispersing that PPE where it's needed most in the healthcare system. The email for anybody out there who's watching who has a supply of PPE and wishes to donate it, it's emergencymanagement@smdhu.org. That's emergencymanagement@smdhu.org. And that's for any organizations out there who have a supply of PPE that they wish to donate to people working in the healthcare system. The health unit will distribute that. So thanks for that, Councillor Harris. Any others who have announcements? Okay, seeing none, I have a few. We are still proclaiming March 26th as Purple Day for Epilepsy Awareness, March 31st is Transgender Day of Visibility, and the month of April as Dig Safe Month, Music Festival Association Month, Parkinson's Awareness Month, and Daffodil Month in the city of Barrie. I wanted just to say a few things by way of closing before we move to the bylaws here. I do want to thank the members of council for the work that you have been doing. I know each of you have made efforts in your own ward. We've been trying to coordinate the effort to reach out to vulnerable residents in the city. I know some of you were doing these calls and contacts over the weekend and really embracing your areas of the city. So thank you for all of the work that you have done. It's a chance for me to publicly thank the members of council for the work that they are doing as part of our efforts to support our residents through the COVID-19 crisis. I certainly want to echo Councillor Aylwin's thanks. There are so many unsung heroes out there who have been pushed into by circumstance a position of becoming essential workers, whether they're in a grocery store or driving a bus or working in as part of the healthcare system or otherwise. And as the expression goes, we stay at home. They don't get to, but we stay home for them to try and keep them all safe. And that is why, you know, it is just so important that every level of government and everybody in a position of leadership in the city continues to reinforce the single message. You know, as we're meeting here tonight, excuse me, as we're meeting here tonight, we really are entering the critical period in terms of physical distancing and the importance of everybody being part of the solution. I know we say this over and over, and we say this through every channel, but this is the time. And for all those watching at home through our live stream right now, thank you to the residents of Barrie who overwhelmingly have chosen to be part of the solution, to observe physical distancing, to offer to help out. The spirit of the city comes through in a crisis. It is usually the measure of a community, how it responds to a crisis. And to have Facebook groups that have not 1 or 2 or 5,000 residents, but 7,000 or 8,000 residents reaching out to say, I want to help. I want to help each other get through this situation. And to watch people displaying the support for essential services workers, the support for their neighbors, the creativity that's gone into replacing the connections that we have lost in terms of daily life and social life with the connections we can still make online and through messages in windows and on sidewalks and so forth. It has been a time in which I've been proud to be your mayor, and I'm sure I'm speaking for all members of council when I say that the way that Barrie has responded to this shows our strength as a community and the degree to which we care about one another. But we need absolutely everybody to be part of that solution over the coming weeks. It is an unprecedented situation. I know we keep using that expression, but this is the time. We need to practice that physical distancing, stay home if you can, stay 6 feet apart if you can't. We will all get through this together. And I want to say thank you again to all of those who are continuing to fight COVID-19 on the front lines. With that, we can move to the bylaws. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed, Bill 33. I do have them individually. I guess that's the way I have to do them.
Yeah, we will do them that way for now. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward and seconded by Councillor Thompson that leave be granted to introduce the following bill. This bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. It's Bill 33 with regards to delegated authority. Any comments or questions on this bylaw? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask you to indicate by show of hands. Those in favor? Are any opposed? None. That carries. Thank you. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed, Bill 34.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward and seconded by Councillor Thompson that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed, Bill 34, committee appointments. Do we need to move the amendment at this point?
Yeah, Jim Harris has one.
Go ahead, Councillor Harris. Do you want to move the amendment to the bylaw?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Yes. So the amendment of Bill 34, committee appointments, that Bill 34 be amended by replacing Schedule A with a revised Schedule A as amended to reflect the addition of further committee appointments approved by City Council on March 30th, 2020.
Okay, thank you. It is moved by Councillor Jim Harris and seconded by Councillor Thompson. That Bill 34 be amended by replacing Schedule A with a revised Schedule A as amended to reflect the addition of further committee appointments approved by City Council on March 30th, 2020. Any comments or questions on this amendment? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. Please indicate by show of hands those in favor. Any opposed? None. That carries unanimously by those present. And on the bylaw now as amended, any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the bylaw as amended? Any opposed? None. That carries. We're getting the hang of this. Deputy Mayor Ward, the confirmation bylaw.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 35.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward and seconded by Councillor Thompson that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 35, the confirmation bylaw. Comments or questions on that? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Or any opposed? None. That carries unanimously by those present. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Natalie Harris, second by Councillor Riepma. Members of council, please hang up and log back in for the closed session meeting. We'll resume once everybody is back online. To all those watching at home, thank you for being part of our first virtual city council meeting. Good night and stay strong, Barry. Bye.
So, yeah. Oops.